Where can I fly my drone? Will I get in trouble if I fly my drone here? Is it safe to operate my drone in this area? These are some of the questions that both FPV pilots and other drone operators continually ask. Today we're going to answer those questions by briefly going over a quick summary of the new law for recreational drone flying within the United States, as well as take a quick look at Airmap, a simple application to use, which will help you answer those questions. Before we get started, I've got a fairly major announcement for all of you TMac FPV teammates coming up in about 3 weeks. And the first of 3 keywords to help unravel the mystery of what that major announcement will be is the word FAST, F-A-S-T. If you have a guess as to what the major announcement will be based on that keyword, go ahead and put it down in the comments section below. Next week will be the second keyword. Let's get started. Okay, a quick summary of the new law enforced by the Federal Aviation Administration, or the FAA. If you go to the FAA.gov website, under Recreational Flyers and Modeler Community-Based Organizations, it says there's new changes to recreational drone flying in the United States. There's a new law in a PDF format that describes how, when, and where you can fly drones for recreational purposes. Follow these rules. Will keep you and your drones safe and will keep the airspace available to everyone, which is important to know. Here's what you need to do. Register your drone if it's over 0.55 pounds or 250 grams. You have to mark it on the outside with the registration number, and there's a PDF on how to do that. So if you have a FPV drone that is over 250 grams, you need to register it with the FAA, which costs $5 and is good for 3 years. Then you get a registration number, and you just have to locate it on the outside of the drone somewhere, not within the flight stack. And you can refer to this PDF, which I'll put in the links below to explain how to go ahead and accomplish that. You need to make sure to fly only for recreational purposes and follow the safety guidelines of a community-based organization such as the Academy of Model Aeronautics, or the AMA. Items 4 through 7 are basically where Airmap or a similar application would come in to help you determine if you're flying within authorized airspace and in accordance with FAA rules. First thing you need to know is you need to fly your drone at or below 400 feet when in uncontrolled or Class G airspace. There are 6 classes of airspace recognized by the FAA. Classes A, B, C, D, E, and G, A being the most restrictive and G being the least restrictive. G is uncontrolled airspace. Therefore, if you can only fly at or below 400 feet in the least restricted class of airspace, that means if you consider flying in the more restrictive airspaces, the restrictions will actually get tighter potentially than what it is for Class G airspace. Don't fly in controlled airspace around and above many airports unless it gives stipulations here. Keep your drone within your visual line of sight. Do not fly in airspace where flight is prohibited. Once again, this is where Airmap, which we'll go over here in just a couple minutes, can help you out. Never fly near other aircraft, especially near airports. Never fly over groups of people, public events, or stadiums full of people. Don't fly near emergencies, such as any type of accident response, law enforcement activities, firefighting, or hurricane recovery efforts, because you don't want to interfere with the emergency actions. And never fly under the influence of drugs or alcohol. Recreational flyers should know that if they intentionally violate any of these safety requirements and or operate in a careless and reckless manner, they could be liable for criminal and or civil penalties. Okay, having said that, the entire law in PDF format I'm going to link in the video description below. This law that they have in a PDF format is 462 pages long and covers many more things than recreational flying of unmanned aerial systems. So there's also a shorter version of it in PDF format from the Government Publishing Office, which was just released today, Friday, May 17th, which talks about the exception for limited recreational operations of unmanned aircraft. That's a much shorter document, and therefore it's only 4 pages. I'll go ahead and link that first in the video description below for people to access. Now that we've summarized the basics of the new law, let's take a look at Airmap, which is a simple software application which you can both use on your desktop computer, and there's also an app for it for your mobile phone. Okay, to use the Airmap software application, just go to your browser, type in Airmap. First thing that pops up, Airmap Home. Use Airmap. It's completely free, and there's also an app in both the App Store and in Google Play. The features for both the desktop version and the application versions for your mobile phone are the same. We're going to use the desktop for demonstration purposes. Get started, and we're going to take a look at 5 different sites in the United States as a demonstration of how to use it. These little icons here are aircraft, flights. Click on one of them, and it shows you this information. We'll go ahead and put it in the first demonstration location, and that will be, these are just random. Syracuse, New York. Here we go. Here's the location that we typed in. We're going to zoom in on it. And as you zoom in on it, airspace status information will show up. All of these yellow circles are some sort of advisory. You'll also notice some smaller green circles, and we'll go ahead and take a look at both of those. So for example, let's take a look at this particular advisory here. It's an airport, Marcellus, and it provides you with a phone number to call. Why would we need that? Because if you go to the FAA website, faa.gov website, flying near airports, generally drone operators should avoid flying near airports because of other air traffic. That makes sense. Okay, option 1, if you have a remote pilot certificate and are following Part 107 rules. Or option 2, if you're flying with a model Aero Club organization following the special rule for model aircraft, you must notify the airport operator and air traffic control tower to fly within 5 miles of an airport. In order to notify the airport operator and air traffic control tower, you can do that one of 2 ways that I'm familiar with. 1, you can give them a phone call, or 2, you can do it digitally also with Airmap, I believe. But for our purposes, we're just going to demonstrate that you can do it with a phone call because Airmap lists the phone call here using the phone app, and you may be able to do it on the desktop as well. I know there's a way to contact them digitally, especially if you have a remote pilot certificate and are flying within Part 107 rules. So that's this particular advisory here, but what about these 2 green circles within there? Let's take a look at that, find out what these are. That's an AMA field. That's an Academy of Model Aeronautics field which you can use, and it's Camillus Indoor Aviators. What about this green circle? That also is an AMA field, the Aero Radio Club of Syracuse. So those are 2 locations which are green, which you can use within the airport advisory. All right, let's take a look at another location. How about Athens, Georgia? This is Athens, Georgia. And once again, you see a bunch of advisory areas. So let's take a look at this area over here. And we have Barrow County Airport, which is located here, with a phone number which you can use to call. Once again, what about this green circular area? That is an AMA field, Scenic RC Flyers. So that's an area that you know within Athens, Georgia that you can go to and fly. All these other areas, if you click outside of these advisories, there are no advisories. So any of the areas outside of these circles or these yellow marked areas, let's take a look at one of these. That's a school. So you want to avoid flying in and around the school or near an Oconee County jail or sheriff. What about these red areas? Let's take a look at one of these. That's a park. It's a national park, Chattahoochee River National Recreational Area. All right, what about another location, let's say Ankeny, Iowa. And what we're doing is we're starting up in the northeast and we're just hitting some spots going west in the United States. So here's Ankeny, Iowa, and here's Ankeny Regional Airport. Obviously within the airport, Ankeny Class E2 requires FAA authorization. It's controlled airspace. It is not Class G airspace. But what about this little circular green area? Another AMA field, 515 FPV. You can probably look those guys up on perhaps the multigp.com site for a chapter. In fact, let's go ahead and do that real quick. Multigp.com, chapters. There's a few chapters on a map. Let's go up to Iowa. 515 FPV. There you have it. So 515 FPV in Des Moines, Iowa flies at the AMA field near the Ankeny Regional Airport. Good stuff, guys. All right, let's take a look at Pueblo, Colorado. Know a couple folks out there. There is a Pueblo Memorial Airport, Class D airspace, requires FAA authorization, so it's not Class G. Sky Corral RC Club operates in an AMA field in Pueblo, Colorado. What's this blue area? Let's take a look at this blue area. Special Use Airspace, Fort Carson, Colorado. That's an Army post out here in Colorado. Army airfield. Probably don't want to be flying drones out there. But if you zoom out, there's lots of open space without advisories that you can fly in and around Colorado Springs. There's also some red areas where you don't want to fly because it's a national park. All right, one more, I think. Let's take a look at Bend, Oregon. And Field of Dreams RC Club uses an AMA field in Redmond, Oregon. All right, that's basically how you use Airmap. It's a very simple tool to use. As I mentioned, it's both useful for your desktop and also on an application on your iPhone or Android. Just because these advisories exist doesn't mean necessarily that you cannot fly there. It just means that in order to fly there with authorization, you need to contact them. I did this myself because I do live within 5 miles of a small airfield. So I wanted to make sure that I was abiding by all the rules and regulations that I was supposed to. So I used Airmap. I was within one of these yellow circular areas. I clicked on one of these yellow circular areas. They came up with the name and location of the small airfield that I was within 5 miles of, to include the phone number. And per the FAA site at the time, this was over a year ago, but per the FAA site at the time, it says go ahead and contact them, which I did. I just called the number, and the gentleman was very nice to me on the phone, and I explained to him what I was intending on doing, and he informed me that, of course, there was no problems with me doing that, and unless I was going to be flying closer to his airfield at a higher altitude and things of that sort of nature, then I no longer needed to contact him in the future for any of my flights. So what I did was I made sure and document that phone number, the person's name, location, the date, and the time I called him, and what he said. I documented that phone conversation and saved that to my computer for future reference. So with that, a summary of the new law and the FAA explanation of it, as well as the use of Airmap, you should have a good idea of where you're authorized to fly and should have no troubles whatsoever finding a good spot for you to fly your FPV quad in locations throughout the United States. We'll see you in the next video. Until then, clear skies and happy flying, my friends.